Hey guys, and welcome to Of Those Below. In this series, I will be interviewing people who have amazing stories to tell. I hope you find them encouraging and inspiring. Here we go. Hi, Ophelia.
Hey, Danny.
How are you doing?
Good. It's been forever.
It's been 2 years since I've seen you.
So long ago, like right before the pandemic really hit hard.
Yeah, I think we were all really unsure of what was going to happen. I remember you were so kind. You invited me over for dinner, and your husband, he cooked for us a real authentic Indian meal. And I remember this so vividly. He was cooking with a lot of spices, and it got in the air. And I felt like I needed to cough, but because of COVID, I'm like, I don't want this person to think I have COVID. And I think everyone in the room was thinking the same thing, like they wanted to cough. And I felt like, because, when you're cooking with spices, the heat expands and, it fills the whole room.
Right.
And I was just like crying internally. I'm like, don't cough, don't cough, don't cough. But anyway, it was so good. I don't even remember what he cooked, but I remember it was super spicy, but it was so good.
So I don't remember exactly, but I know like when we cook, we just add a bunch of spices. Like we don't measure anything out. So
Wow.
heaps full of cumin and chili powder and what other garam masalas and just like different things. We just add it. We don't measure anything. We're just like, this seems right.
That's one way to do it. I definitely try to follow a recipe. I feel like if I don't follow a recipe, all the food I try to wing is like just mushy and gross.
And I'm like the complete opposite. So if I follow a recipe like to the T, it never comes out right. Like it's so odd. So I'm just like, what's the point if I'm not gonna like it? I can at least just throw in some things and see how it goes. And it's always so much better for me that way. It makes
Wow. It's like very spontaneous. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I still dream about that meal because I'm like, God, that was so good. Like, you can't get any better like Indian food than authentic from an Indian man. You know what I mean?
for sure, yeah.
Uh,
I agree.
well, I am so glad that you agreed to do this. I am really excited to hear your story here in just a couple minutes. But first, I want to ask. I know I asked you to take the Enneagram,
Yeah.
and what number are you?
So I'm a 6, and I've never really like taken one of these tests before. So it was very insightful to like see what my personality traits are. I mean, like you think you know yourself, right? And
Right.
the test, and I didn't know like what all the different types were, and just kind of like, okay, like if you're 1, you're this, so on and so forth. So at the end, I get my results and I'm like, okay, I'm a 6. Great, cool. What does that mean? And I'm like digging into some research and just looking at it. I'm like, wow, this is me.
By yeah, I was going to ask, the 6 is labeled as the loyalist. I was going to ask how you feel about that label.
I, I mean, for me, it seems pretty accurate. One of the, besides like the loyal part of that aspect, one of the things that like I also struggle with is anxiety, and that tends to be something that is more what's the word, like more 6s tend to have higher amounts of anxiety than maybe a different number.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think you're the second 6 I've ever known. But the only other 6 I know, I'm not really close to her, but I'm safe to feel like we're pretty close. And so it's really interesting, like meeting you again in a way where it's like, oh, like she's the loyalist, and, I was reading into your number because I just haven't met anyone with that number. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is Ophelia. Like the first thing I thought of was, Starbucks. How and that's how we met. I think yeah, I don't remember how exactly, but I know it was you were my shift leader. I remember seeing you and you were like tall and you looked like you were my age. And I was just like, who is this person who's like my age, but she's in charge? And I'm like, that means I could be in charge, but I'm not in charge. So it was a little hard, like kind of giving you a little respect. I don't think I disrespected you, but I was just like, I could have her job. And then I saw you do your job. I'm like, I don't want her job.
Right. So when I was a shift leader at Starbucks, right, a lot of people can do it. A lot of people can be leaders. It's just, it takes patience and practice and just, you kind of have to figure people out fairly quickly, especially the ones that you're working with, because not everyone is motivated the same way.
Right.
Recognize that fairly quickly and work around that, especially. And it was a little bit hard for me because I wasn't motivated in the same aspect as like, my partners at work. So it was hard, but fun. I liked it. It was an experience for sure. But I mean,
Yeah.
you could have had that job, and I honestly think you would have done great.
I don't know. I think I was going through a really rough time when I was at Starbucks. But this kind of ties into that title of your number, the loyalist, because man, you were with Starbucks through thick and thin. I mean, you went through a store remodel with them, 2 different GMs, so many turnovers from people quitting and getting hired. And I would say being loyal is probably not my strong suit at all. It's probably one of the like in the job aspect. I feel like I'm pretty loyal. No, my friendships, they suck too. Like not because like my friends suck. It's because I just tend to like leave, states. And then I just don't keep up with people, I think. And so, yeah, I just think I really, what I'm trying to say, I really admire you for that, that characteristic that you have, like it's just so, I'm so envious of it because I think it is a very needed characteristic in relationships.
I will say it has gotten me in trouble in the past. Not like with other people per se, but just kind of like with myself. In the sense that you're being so loyal to someone, you're not really being loyal to you. You're not really taking care of yourself. Like everyone else's needs and wants are put ahead of yours, and that can really take a toll if you don't learn to balance it fairly well.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think I know what you mean. Yeah. Well, I know you're not a number. So I actually have a couple other questions so that we can get to know you just a little better. And this one kind of has to do with Starbucks a little bit. If you had to describe yourself as a coffee drink, what coffee drink are you?
Oh my gosh. That's a fun question. I like that. And what coffee drink would I be? I think I would be a mix of like a mocha latte with like hazelnut in it.
Okay.
Because I love chocolate. It's like
Yes.
my favorite thing. And I don't know, it just reminds me of like a Ferrero Rocher, and it's just like one of my
Yeah. Okay. Are you iced or hot?
Ooh, hot.
Okay. I love it. Awesome. Okay, I got another question for you. When you're on vacation, what do you take most pictures of?
When I'm on vacation, what do I take the most pictures of? The scenery. So just kind of like depends on where we go. So, if we went to Colorado before, it'd be like pictures of like the mountain and snow. We don't have that here in Texas. If it was like a beach or something, I'd be taking photos of like the ocean. So it's just whatever scenic view there is at that destination is what I tend to take the most photos of.
Love that. I'm the same way for sure. I feel like I don't have any pictures of me on my phone. They're all like of the sunset. All right. Okay. So I got one more question for you. What would the name of an autobiography of your life be called? Like, okay, let me say this in a better way. What would be the title of your autobiography?
I think like thus far, the title of my autobiography would be Overcoming My Fears. That's just kind of been something that I've been working towards for the past maybe 4 or 5 years. So just untangling all of that and working through it.
That's really cool. I really love that. So would you say you're the type of person that really values like personal development?
Yes, definitely.
Mm,
It's hard sometimes, it's hard to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, you got to work on this or you got to work on that. And then it's even harder when you have like multiple things to work on at once.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think I'm just I'm the kind of person that's like takes everything so deep and like, how does my character reflect if I choose to do this thing right now? And it's like other people are like, just pick the chocolate ice cream. It's okay, you know. But
Hard that much thought, yeah.
yeah, but I'm just like, no, but like if I pick that one, I won't leave enough for anyone else who might need, it's just like a whole thing. But yeah, yeah. Well, that's fun. I'm glad we got to know you just a little better, instead of just, being labeled as a number. Well, Ophelia, I can't wait to hear what story you have in store for us. What story are you going to be sharing?
So this is a story that you know very well.
Okay. I can't wait.
Because you were a really big part of it. Little did I know at that time. But the story is just how I came to my faith and just how I, became, or how I came to my faith, as well as how I became a Christian, and just kind of what that meant for me back then and kind of the course that it's taken now.
Okay. I seriously can't wait. I think I've heard just the very beginning of it, so I'm really excited to hear your perspective and where you're at now.
Well, thank you. So like you had mentioned, we met at Starbucks, and I was your shift lead at one point. And you and I got along really well at work. Like we never had any issues. And I think you're probably like the only person who didn't cry about taking the trash out. I just remember that I would ask you to take the trash out and you'd just be so happy to like go about it and to take it out. So that's always just stuck with me.
I love that. I love taking the trash out. It's no big deal.
So since we got along very well at work, you're like, oh, like we've never really hung out outside of work. Like, why haven't we hung out? Like, what's going on? And you had invited me to hang out with you one day. I think we were both off that day, or maybe it was after work. I don't remember. Anyway, I was like, okay, yeah, like let's hang out. I've never had any problems with you. You were always fun at work. You're just like, you always had a smile on your face. I'm like, okay, this is the type of person I want. This is the type of person I want to associate myself with. And you had texted me or like, hey, like let's hang out. It's gonna be a surprise. I'm not gonna tell you where we're going. And I never liked surprises, and I still don't to this day. So I'm like, okay. I just remember you telling me to wear comfortable clothes. I'm like, okay, no big deal. Like I live in comfortable clothes all day. So that was fairly easy to do. And we met up at Starbucks to go hang out. And then from there, you were driving. So we were driving, I think, on part of like I-35, and I just kept bugging you, like, hey, like, where are we going? I don't really like surprises. You're like, I'm not going to tell you till we get there. You'll see. And I was like, oh, okay. And we drive past like the skydive sign that's on the way. And I'm like, oh, are we going to go skydiving? Like, that would be fun. Kind of scary, but okay. You're like, no, that's not where we're going. So I don't remember like the conversations that we had in your car. But I just remember so much peace while I was like with you in the car. Like I felt so much peace, which at that point in my life, I didn't really have. I was struggling mentally, emotionally, just had like different things going on at once. And we drove to Lake Whitney, and you took me out to Lake Whitney. So that was really fun. And I had never been there before. So beforehand, right? So before this trip, I wasn't really a Christian. I didn't really believe in God. I mean, like I grew up, I mean, I guess I should have told this part in the beginning, but we didn't really grow up with God in our house. I didn't really go to church. Like my parents are from the Middle East, and they're Christian, but we just never went to church. You know, my dad's a truck driver and my mom's a stay-at-home mom, so we never had a way to get anywhere, and she didn't drive, right?
Okay.
She came straight from the Middle East to live in the States. So we never had God. Like God was never a central part of us, of our family growing up. And kind of like early in my teenage years, I was like, okay, yeah, like there's a God. But we just went through so much turmoil as a family. Like we almost lost our house and the car, and there's just a lot of like different things that was going on.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like my mom wasn't still fluent, so I had to help her a lot with translations and just kind of like getting around and setting things up for her, because she couldn't read or write in English and needed help, right?
Sure, yeah.
So God was never like a central part of me growing up, as well as like my teenage years. When I was in my early teens, I was like, okay, like, yeah, there's a higher being. I don't really know who it is or what it is, but it's there. But kind of as we went through different events with our family, I started to not believe in God. I was like, okay, like this isn't right. Like if God is real, why does so many bad things keep happening to my family and other people around us? Like why is the world the way it is? And all of that really, I lost my faith at that point. So fast forwarding to when you and I went on our trip, just before that, I was struggling mentally and emotionally and just had a lot going on. So one night I just kind of laid on my bed and was like, I was talking to the ceiling basically, right? And I was like, I don't know, God, if you're out there, but if you are, like, show yourself to me, because at this point I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think or say. And I'm very lost and confused, right? So after that, and I didn't know what like a prayer was. So I was just like, okay, if you're there, this is the time to show me who you are. And if you're, who you say you are and what you can do, right? And after that, I opened the Bible for the first time in a really long time. And I started from the beginning. So in Genesis, where it talks about how the world was created. I read a little bit about Cain and Abel, their story, and then I got to Noah's Ark. I read a little bit about that and the flood, right? So at that point, I had just called it, and I was like, okay, I have something to do tomorrow. I have to go to bed. And that's when you and I had met, and we drove to Lake Whitney.
So interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how everything comes together.
Yeah.
And we drove to Lake Whitney, and there was like this hike that we went on to an upper part of a ledge. It was like maybe, I don't know, 40 feet higher than.
Yeah, it's a 40-foot cliff. Yeah.
40-foot cliff. Okay, I'm surprised I remember that. And this was back in 2017. Like the date, I remember the date exactly. It was like May 4th, 2017.
Yes.
And it's really funny, right? Because we always say like, May the 4th be with you, right?
I'm starting to see all these little nuances that I just hadn't seen before.
Yeah. And we got to that cliff, and you and I were just like laying down. We were, I think at one point, just like laying on our bellies, and Lake Whitney is here and the cliff is here, and we're just looking out at the horizon, and the sun is starting to set, but it hasn't like completely set, and we're seeing like the waves crash by. And it had rained in that area for the past couple of days. So the water levels were higher than they normally were.
Yeah.
Than they really are, because of all that downpour we had. And you were telling me about the book that you were reading, The Alchemist. And that is
Yes.
one of my favorite books. I read it at least once a year.
So do I. Yeah.
It's such a great book to just read and reflect back on. And I was just telling you, oh my gosh, like this is so crazy. I had just finished reading this for maybe the first or second time at that point. And I was just, explaining to you, like, so maktub in The Alchemist is a very big central topic. And maktub in Arabic means it's written. So it's written, by the hand of God. And you and I were just talking about that and just other things. I don't remember everything, but I just remember The Alchemist being kind of a central conversation piece, right? And then afterwards, we decided to head home. But before we head home, we had to walk back where we came from. And then there was this 20-foot cliff. I think it's 20 feet, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, let's jump, like, let's fly. And I didn't have any clothes with me. I didn't have like a towel or anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this girl's crazy. So you're like, okay, I'll go first. And you go jump into, you jump over the cliff. And it was so fun watching you. Like you just had fun and you swam back up and climbed up I don't know what it's called.
Like the rocks. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So you climbed back up there and it was fun seeing, like, okay, you have to go, it's your turn. And I was just like, I don't know, I don't really want to, I'm kind of scared. And I told you, like, I remember this so clearly. I was like, Danny, I'm so scared I'm gonna get swept by what is it called? How do you say it? Like by the water, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The currents. There we go. I was so afraid of getting swept by the current because the waves were crashing fairly hard, I would say, and it was pretty windy that day too.
Yeah.
And you're like, just go, it'll be fun. You're gonna be okay. Don't worry about it. Something along that line. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. Right.
Yeah.
So I took my socks off and then I had this necklace on, and it's from the Giving Keys. So it's a key and it had the word believe on it.
Oh,
and
wow.
At that point, like I didn't have anything to believe in. So I just had to believe in believing, like if that makes any sense.
Okay. Yeah.
So I took that necklace off and I threw it like directly behind me, like literally directly behind me. And it didn't go very far. I saw it before I even jumped in. So you were recording me and I still have a video and I was watching it earlier today of me jumping in. So I was like, okay, 1, 2, and then on 3 I jumped, right? And when I tell you, I felt like I landed on my back and it felt like I was going underwater in slow motion. Like it literally felt like I was underwater for ages.
Wow.
But in the video, you clearly can see me coming, like jumping in and then like popping back up like half a second later. But as I was going down, I just, I'm starting to shake. I just see like there's this beam of light that is like shining through the water. And I just kept falling back like further and further, deeper into the water and in such slow motion. Unbelievable. And then my hair tie came out. So once I bobbed back up, right, I just remembered that I was starting to swim back to the rocks. And for the life of me, like I could not get back up. Like I struggled so much to get back up. And then I started getting swept by the currents. I was like, oh my goodness, like my biggest fear is literally happening. Like, I don't know what to do. So I just remember screaming out to him, I was like, Danny. It was such a panic. And man, at that point, like, I think we were trying to figure out how to come help me. But at that point, this dude comes from out of nowhere, like absolute nowhere. Like I feel like he just came out of thin air. because if you'll remember, I don't know if you do, but I clearly remember I was looking around and saw absolutely no one around us.
Yeah. I mean, where we were, it was like, like obviously like a hiking area, and he did not have any hiking clothes on that I remember.
No, so I don't know why I remember this, but he had a wife beater shirt on and like some shorts. That was basically it. Like he didn't look like he was, there hiking. And even like the area that we were at, I was looking around and there was like absolutely no one in sight. So I just felt like he came out of thin air. And he's a scrawny dude. Like he's taller than me, but he's thin. Like he doesn't have a lot of muscle to him.
Right.
So he came rushing down, and I don't know how, but he was able to pull me up. And I'm not like the thinnest person in the world.
Neither am I. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Yeah, like this guy
Yeah,
was.
so I just don't know like how this dude who doesn't look like he has the muscle or the strength was able to like pull me out. And I mean he came into the water to do that. So he would put his hand out for me and I would try to grasp it, but I couldn't. Like I just kept getting swept away. And he came into the water. So then when he came into the water, he was able to pull me and he got himself up while like I'm still latched onto him. He got himself up and then he pulled me up those rocks. And it was just so crazy because like I said, no one was in sight. And then once he got me up, he sat down next to me, just making sure I was okay. And he's like, hey, like, I just want to tell you something. I got a text today from a friend saying that I was going to be someone's angel. Wow. And at that point, like, that was like the final piece to the puzzle, if you will, for me. Because I had just read about, the flood in the Bible with Noah's Ark. And that's the last part I left off was just water, right? So water is very symbolic.
Totally.
And ironically enough, right, my father named me from Hamlet, the heroine or Hamlet's love interest in the play. Her name was Ophelia. And she, doesn't make it. Like she ends up losing her life by drowning.
So crazy.
So crazy because at that day I had almost like, honestly, if he wasn't there, there was no way I would have been able to get back to safety. I struggled just trying to get to the rocks. Like I would latch onto the rocks, get swept away, latch on, and I'd like get swept away further and further. So that's just so mind-boggling for me. It's crazy to think that. And he's like, he thinks that it's crazy that he's saying that, he's going to be someone's angel.
Right.
And he's like, I have the text to prove it. And I'm like, no, you don't have to show me. It's okay. Like, I believe you. And he was like, no, here, look. And it said, literally from his friend, it said that you are going to be someone's angel today.
Wow.
And at that point, I had just gotten chills all over my body. And,
yeah.
His name is Justin. He was sitting next to me and I was just like, we were both just looking out at the horizon. And I was just like, wow, like that is such a God thing. Like for me, there's no other way to explain it. And after that, he left and I went to look for my necklace, right? Because I said it was, I threw it behind me. I could not find it in sight. Like it was nowhere near. And when I threw it back, it landed right next to where my socks were.
Yeah.
I had my socks. I don't have my necklace that says believe. So I was just like, okay, like that's it. It had like, this is a God thing. And this was like the night before I was like, okay, if you're there, show me who you are, if you're real, prove it, basically. And did he do that? So that was that. And I remember just telling you about it. We had passed by one of the campers' sites, like on our way back to the car. And there was, what was it? I think a dove that had flown by, right? or was it a fire that was on? Maybe both. But I remember you telling me like, this is so crazy. Like, this is a sign that this is from God. And then we go to your car and you're like, okay, like, how do you feel? Like, what do you think? My dog's in the background.
It's okay. He's great. He's great.
And I, at that point, you're like, okay, like, do you believe in God? Like, do you want to accept, Jesus as your Lord? And I was just like, yes, like I started crying. So we were at a stop sign. And apparently from what I remember you telling me is that crossroad to get back onto like the highway is always so busy. Like there's always cars going in both directions. There's like typically someone behind you who's wanting to like get on the highway. And you had just stopped at the stop sign. And we prayed together. And I don't remember the prayer exactly, but it was me accepting Christ into my life. And like the world had stopped. It was so crazy. It felt like that moment in time was just frozen, and it was just for us in that car. Like no other cars were around us, no one behind us, no one crossing the streets, like nothing. It was just so still.
Yeah.
I felt so much peace. And then after I accepted Christ, I felt, starting from like my heart, I felt like this warm feeling, just it started to like radiate all like throughout my entire body. It started from my heart and then just like expanded everywhere. And I was telling you this and you're like, okay, like, oh my gosh, like that's the Holy Spirit, how exciting. I started to cry, and then I think you started to cry.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was that, and that's how I realized and came to Christ. And God is real, very much so.
So amazing, Ophelia. Like I just, unfortunately, my part in this whole story is I'm filming you while you're drowning, and there's a video to prove it. Like
Yes,
I
yeah.
think I'm like, go to the rocks, and you're like, help me, and I'm like, it's over there, like holding my phone, like over there, and you're like, help me, and I'm like, oh, like she needs my help. And so I'm like, okay, I need to climb down there. And then that guy showed up.
Literally, like, yeah, that's how it was. So the part of the video I have, I cut out the ending where I was just like basically drowning, because I had posted that to Instagram and I didn't want that there yet.
Sure.
So I don't have the end part, but I remember you filming like the entire thing and me just like screaming out to you. And in the video that you have, the one that I didn't cut off, you clearly can see me like yelling and hear me yelling for help, and just like kept getting swept away.
And I just kept recording like an idiot. Like I really didn't like, it didn't like compute in my head. I'm like she needs help. Go, stop recording. And yeah. I don't know if it was the adrenaline rush, because I had just jumped in.
Right.
I wasn't taking, I think what you told me as well was like, you hadn't swam in years. And like the last time you swam was a swimming pool, and we were in open water.
Yeah. So the last time I was in a pool, I think was like maybe before I moved to Texas, and I moved here in 2006. The house that I lived in with my family, like we didn't have a pool. I never went to like any of the community pools around us. So I hadn't been in the water in a long time. And one of the craziest parts about the story kind of ties back into my childhood, is I actually did drown in water when I was about 2.5. I fell into the pool. And thankfully, like my mom's friend was there with her. Good. And she was able to like pull me out and do CPR.
Wow.
Because I went blue. So water is like such a big, important symbol in my life.
Yeah.
For me to come to Christ in water, right? Or to realize that God and Christ is real in water is just amazing. And then I got baptized a year later. And of course that happens in water, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So tell me where, I know where the story kind of ends with, while we were there at Lake Whitney, but
mhm,
tell me, where you're at now, like how from that moment to, I mean, it's been almost 5 years now.
yeah.
What journey, a little bit of your journey.
Yeah, so since I accepted Christ into my life, things have gotten so much better. Um, I had just terrible like relationships in the past, and then God gave me Shubham, which is now my husband, who in 2018 baptized me, and then we got married in 2019. So, I still struggle from time to time being a Christian, in the sense that, like, I may not pray as often as I want to, or read the Bible as often as I'd like to. Like, we all have those daily struggles, but my relationship with Christ is so much stronger now.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a lot that I'm still learning. Even though I've been on this journey for 5 years, I don't think you ever stop
You
learning.
never stop.
Yeah. And so I'm just trying to become a stronger Christian. Kind of like when COVID hit, had really bad anxiety. Like, I was also in
Mm.
grad school trying to do my courses
Yeah.
online, my thesis. Like, there's just so many things that were at play. And then I, of course, like, left Starbucks. So we were down to one income at that time. And that was hard, but I've come to rely on Christ a lot more. And what I've noticed is that He will always provide. Like, no
Mm.
matter what your situation is, or what you're going through, or what you think you need or don't need, or whatever it may be, God is going to give you the people and the resources that are necessary for you to succeed and to continue to move forward in your life. Like, He's never going to withhold any of that. It may
Mm.
not be given to you at a certain time that you would like, right?
Right. Right.
But nonetheless, it will still be given to you. So I've been learning a lot recently, even, to just let it be. And, God is going to give it to me whenever He knows it's going to suit us better. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep up with my relationship and try to make it stronger throughout
Yeah.
time.
That's so encouraging what you were saying just now about God's going to provide the resources and the people to get you through whatever you're going through. Like, man, like I know we haven't really talked in 2 years, and a lot has happened in the last 3 months for me. And what you just said is so true. We think like when something bad happens to us, we're like, this is horrible. And, we get so stuck in this, like, this is horrible, that, we always forget to like look up. So it's just so encouraging, not only like seeing how beautiful, like your story is so poetic, and just from your name to the experiences you had in your past, the way water comes and goes into your life, and how God's beautifully tying that, into your own story. And it means something so significant to you that it might not to me, like,
Mm.
and it's just so neat seeing how God is so personable with each one of us. And
Mhm.
it's just this like inside joke with it. It's not a joke, but it's like this inside thing with you and God. And it's like, you might see a river and you just kind of look up and you're like, oh, you put that there because I'm having a bad day or something. Or I might see a bird. I'm like, okay, you gave me that bird because I wasn't trusting you. Okay, now I trust you. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's a relationship, and it's so beautiful because it's like, it's so unique to each one of us. And I think, your story is incredible, Ophelia. And I mean, who the hell am I? Like, I feel so like honored that God would even like bother putting me, as a witness to like this major event in your life that changed your life.
Yeah.
Like,
Awesome.
I did not deserve that, like, but God, I think our paths crossed at that point.
Awesome.
And I think I definitely needed, to see that happen, because it was just so encouraging and put that fire back under my own light, like, oh my God, like God is saving people like right here, right now, in front of me, in my car, and like, it's just, God doesn't stop. And I'm just so grateful for you in my life, because your story is so amazing.
I don't even know like what to say. Just it's hard for me to like put anything into words, but I cannot like appreciate you anymore. Like I cannot thank God anymore for you being in my life, especially at like that point. Like so often we forget that God will use us to fulfill his purpose for not only ourselves, but for others as well. So it was just so crazy. And I'm just thankful that like I got to experience it with you. It just has so much meaning. Like I know that you have shown that video to other people.
Hundreds. When I have the chance, I'm like, you guys, I need to tell you a story. It's how God saved my friend Ophelia, and I have a video to prove it. And
Yes.
everyone is like, two things happen. One, they're like, that's crazy. And two, it's like, you didn't go down there and help her.
But you did your part though. Like you had a big part, like a big role to play in me coming to Christ, and you played your part. You did what you had to do. So even though like you're still like recording and not realizing I needed help, that's okay, because you had already done what you needed to do, or like what God had you do. And because you weren't there in the water to pull me out, he provided one of his angels on earth. Like I do believe that now. I believe
totally
that we have angels all around us, in the human form.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. No, I mean, I saw him. I saw him, and like I'm like a witness. I validate. I saw everything that happened, and again, it's just proof that you are so freaking important to God, that he's not done with you. He wasn't done with you in that moment. He's not done with you now.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I think, like one of the biggest things to remember is, especially like when we get stuck in a certain situation or mindset that we can't really get out of, is that you have to realize, even though you are at a point in your life that may suck or kind of is not your best season, it's there for a reason. And also God is going to like help you get through it, and he's going to pull you out of like the trenches and bring you to where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. It's so encouraging. It's so encouraging. It's crazy. We haven't talked in so long, but hearing your faith and like your confidence in your words now, it's just like, God has done such a great work in you, like from knowing you, and you're not really sure where your faith was. And then, being there when you accepted Christ, and then hearing you here 5 years later, I'm just like, you're a changed woman of Christ.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful that I can call you a sister.
So am I. And the crazy thing is, like, I say so many things are crazy.
It's okay.
But one of the crazy things is I used to think people can't change, right? Like people don't change. Like you are who you are, and that's it. And after coming to Christ, it's like, okay, yeah, people can change, mostly with the help of Christ. He can, shape and mold your heart to where he wants it to be. That way, a couple of years down the road, you look back and you're like, wow, I'm a totally different person than I was in 2017, 2020, whatever. So it's just, people can change, and it happens through God and the people that he uses.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're absolutely right.
It's been really awesome to like have you in my life, and at that point as well. And even now, like, even though we don't get to see each other or talk as much, like I feel like every time we reconnect, like when you came over to our apartment back in 2020 before like the pandemic really hit, and even now, like it feels like I've just it's been like a day that I've talked to you.
Yeah, I feel like we could always pick up right where we left off. And
Exactly.
I just I'm so grateful for your friendship, Ophelia.
I'm grateful for you and everything that you've done in my life and everything that you're doing in other people's life. Like, if God can use you to help me, one person, like, can you imagine how many other people you're helping and you don't even realize it?
You're so sweet. I hope so. You know, sometimes it doesn't feel that way. You know, and I just hope also that when it does happen, I'm humble enough to, you know, give it back to God and say that was you. So thank you for that encouragement.
Anytime. I'm glad that we were able to do this and to share, you know, my story. It's been a while since I thought about it, or even like watched that video. So every time I do watch it, I just start laughing.
Oh,
Like the biggest smile on my face. It's just
yeah. Yeah. Well, I have one more question for you. And if you've shared already so many, but I want to ask this question. And if you already shared it, it's great. You can say it again. But what nugget of wisdom would you want the world to know?
so I have two nuggets of wisdom.
Okay, perfect.
And these are not novel, like by any means. I'm sure so many people have like repeated this so many times, but the first one is to know that it's okay that you feel like you're stuck, and it's okay to feel like you're not progressing in a certain like part of your life, and that you can just try to enjoy that time without having to think you need to figure everything out, because you don't. My second piece, or the second nugget that I would like to share, is that it's okay to feel afraid, but don't let that hold you back. Fear shouldn't be something that's like withholding you. It should be a reason why you're able to like propel forward. And I would just give that fear and those concerns to God and let him do what he does best.
Mm, I love that. I love that. That's so true and so encouraging, Ophelia. And I think you definitely live out by those words, you know. You're just, you jumped into a body of water and you just kind of said, all right, let's do it. And I love your attitude.
Body of water. Who does that?
I don't know. You do.
I only did because you did. I was like, okay, what's the harm?
Yeah, but you know, I like had done it the week before. This was your first time in almost, yeah, over 10 years. So yeah, there's courage there that, yeah. So I definitely, I see you as someone who definitely stares at fear in its face and it's like, all right, how are we going to do this?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, whenever I'm afraid of like a certain situation or whatever's like happening in my life, like sometimes I do let it take over, but then I have to realize, like, or I do realize it's already written, right? Maktub, it's already written. God is going to get me through it, and not to be so afraid. Like in the moment, it can be very scary, but once you're out on the other side of it, you realize, oh, you know what? That wasn't as bad as I portrayed it to be. And the reason why is because you have God with you. Like he's always alongside of you. He's never leaving you. As long as, you know, you keep your focus on him, you will be able to overcome that fear. So like once you lose sight of that focus, that's really when fear takes over and you just like feel frozen.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I definitely agree with that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ophelia, just for, you know, spending this evening with me and letting ghosts come in. Please, please, please let your husband know I said hi and thank you for letting me borrow you for this evening. I want to say that I love you. I'm happy for you and I support you in any dreams that you want to do. Okay.
That's so sweet. Thank you. I love you so much. I can't even like put into words. It's just,
I love you so much. I'll see you later.
see you later, alligator. Bye.
Bye.